The man was the peak of a summoner game, with countless terrifyingly powerful summons under his command. But when he finally cleared the 100th floor of the tower, which no one had ever succeeded in before, summoning scrolls from the game suddenly floated in the sky of the real world, and a prompt to tear the scroll appeared before everyone. But as people tore them open according to the prompt, countless hair-raising monsters suddenly descended upon the real world. This sudden scene left me stunned on the spot. Before I could react, a large truck knocked me completely unconscious. When I opened my eyes again, I realized that 3 years had already passed. From my parents, I learned that in these 3 years, earth-shaking changes had occurred. The game completely invaded reality. Even my father owned a stone statue summon. Meanwhile, the TV was broadcasting that the world's rank 1 summoner, Rachel, was searching for Reid, and the player she mentioned, capable of overturning the world, was exactly me, lying in the hospital bed right now. It can be concluded that this person was, in the game, one of the 5 emperors whose strength was just below mine. Just then, a system interface popped up before me, asking if I wanted to enter the tutorial. Then my mother urged me not to rush things, as my body was still too weak. Although I couldn't figure out what had happened to the world, I was far too familiar with the game. After returning home, I began searching through massive amounts of data online. What can be confirmed now is that the trial tower and various summons from the game have all entered reality. Over these 3 years, humans have also figured out a way to coexist with them. After completing the tutorial, I went to an open area. Since the system rewarded me with 2 low-level summoning scrolls, I had to find a deserted place to use them. Right now, I only hoped it would give me some somewhat decent summons. Even for a legendary figure like me, starting with a pile of trash summons would be quite difficult. However, I didn't have high hopes. After all, the gacha rates of this game have always been terrible. I only prayed that I wouldn't pull the lowest F rank. I'd be grateful for that. After a moment of silent prayer, I tore open the low-level scroll. The next moment, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck my hand, giving me a sudden shock. Then, emerging from within, was an EX rank wind spirit. This left me puzzled, as it seemed that in the game, this rank didn't even exist. At this moment, the wind spirit was very surprised, saying it had been years since someone could summon it. I didn't expect the summon to actually be able to speak, but after being stunned for a moment, I seemed to remember something. Your name is Ram, right? How do you know? Only my master, Reid, knows my name. Then it became exceptionally excited. Could it be that you really are him? Then it hugged my face and cried loudly, Master, I missed you so much. It seems this rank summon has returned to my side. In the past, I used a hidden mechanism to embed the best runes for it, turning it into a top-tier support and increasing its attack speed to a record-breaking level. During the novice period, it stayed with me for a long time, so I always called it RAM. But wasn't it previously deleted as a game glitch? Back then, the officials used the reason of breaking game balance to forcibly tear it away from me, which made me very angry. Checking the status bar, I found that the spirit was currently in a state of isolation. Ram cried and said that at the time, it was by an unknown power, sucked into a cage and couldn't break free at all. But when I asked who had isolated it, it hesitated and refused to answer. And it also said that whenever it thought about this, it had a splitting headache and couldn't answer my question. This made me lose my temper. What on earth do you know? Tell me everything. From Ram, I learned that the one isolated was not just it, but 10 in total. This sentence immediately reminded me of something. Back then, when I used the methods the system called glitches, exactly 10 summons were unfortunately deleted. Could it be that they were all categorized into an unprecedented new rank, EX rank, and then isolated? This might mean they only react to my summoning scrolls. Or perhaps it's a reward for me clearing the 100th floor. Thinking of this, I decisively tore open another low-level summoning scroll. But to my surprise, what popped out was just a completely ordinary S-rank gorilla. This completely overturned my previous hypothesis, and at the same time, showed that the summoning scrolls are completely random. However, in the future, I can collect more high-level scrolls, allowing me to once again possess those god-tier summons that were once erased. Then I instructed Ram that from now on, it must not call me by my real name. Because of the 5 emperors, my name has spread throughout the world. I absolutely cannot be exposed now. I must increase my strength as quickly as possible before they find me. Just then, the system suddenly prompted me to enter the next stage. The portal appearing before me could let me enter the basic tutorial dungeon. At this moment, I still felt a bit nervous. After all, this is reality. There are no second chances. Although I've accumulated experience clearing countless dungeons, I still have to be extremely cautious. Once inside, I found the environment was indeed eerie, just like in the game. Meanwhile, the system notified me that I had successfully entered the beginner dungeon. To engage in dungeon combat, I must form a team with summons. Each team can accommodate a maximum of 5 summons. And right now, I can only team up with the newly summoned F-rank summon, Wind Fairy and Gorilla. Normally, to increase the success rate of a dungeon run, F-rank, as Team 1, it's best to bring a full party of 5 summons. F-rank, as Team 1, would you like to assign Wind? But based on my experience, these 2 alone should be enough to handle the beginner tutorial. When I clicked agree, the Wind Fairy and the Gorilla were summoned to my side simultaneously. The beginner tutorial then tasked me with dealing with an F-rank Grey Wolf. Immediately after, the system automatically generated a shield around me. It seems this place is just like the game. It generates a protective barrier to shield the player first. However, if you're attacked before the shield is fully deployed, you could actually die. I immediately ordered the gorilla to launch the first attack, but its movements were far too sluggish, and the Grey Wolf didn't take it seriously at all. But I had already anticipated this situation, so I had the Wind Fairy step in to help. With just one wave of its staff, the Wind Fairy could apply an attack speed buff to the summon. Sure enough, with the buff, the gorilla's movements became faster, enough to pose a threat to the Grey Wolf. But looking at the Grey Wolf charging back, I couldn't help but wonder why this thing was so different from the game. So tall, muscular, and ferocious. At this moment, I only hoped that the buffed gorilla could stop this damn Grey Wolf. But reality didn't go as planned. In just one clash, the Grey Wolf pinned it to the ground. So I had no choice but to urge the Wind Fairy to keep waving its staff, continuously buffing the gorilla, which successfully landed a heavy blow on the Grey Wolf. Then, the Wind Fairy increased the intensity of the magic, and the gorilla, with lightning speed, overpowered the ferocious Grey Wolf. Moreover, every punch was as fast as a flash of lightning. The opponent couldn't defend at all. Just like that, the Grey Wolf was finished in no time. Seeing this, I breathed a sigh of relief, glad nothing went wrong. The reward for clearing the dungeon was 2 low-grade strength runes. Meanwhile, my sister was staring at the 200,001 she earned today, filled with excitement. 3 years ago, with the changing world order, a new profession emerged, rune collector. By entering dungeons to collect runes, and reselling them to those in need. By a stroke of luck, Baek Young-ah found a mid-grade summoning scroll in a low-level dungeon, and luckily obtained a C-rank summon from it. Thanks to this C-rank summon, the Shadow Elf, she was able to earn a steady income by collecting runes. Just then, I called her. Dad told me you're a rune peddler now. Rune peddler? You make me sound like a street vendor. I'm clearly a rune collector. Alright, whatever. Do you know where the player center is? As summons and dungeons appeared all over the world, they needed a dedicated space to handle summon-related affairs. Thus, a series of player zones were created. In these places, various matters could be managed. Then, my sister led me to the player center she was familiar with. Along the way, she kept asking me what the 2 summons I got looked like. I just told her one was F-rank and the other was E-rank. Then, at my urging, she raised her hand, intending to show me her summon. Immediately, the C-rank Shadow Elf was summoned. Seeing that I wasn't very surprised, Baek Young-ah excitedly said, that summons of C-rank and above are extremely rare. So I just gave it a greeting. What are you doing? How could a summon possibly speak? No speaking summons have ever appeared in the world. I think you're just trying to be difficult. This suddenly made me want to complain. My RAM has been talking to me ever since we were together. This led me to wrongly assume that as long as it's a humanoid spirit, it could be like RAM. Then, she led me inside the player center. This was exactly like the scenes I saw in the game, which made me incredibly excited. Here, everyone can freely buy and sell summoning scrolls and other items they've obtained. Scrolls and other things I obtained. After a while, I said goodbye to Bai Jinya, intending to wander around on my own first. When I walked to a deserted corner, I summoned Ram. Just as it was about to speak, I interrupted it. From this moment on, no matter where you are, You are not allowed to speak to me. Speaking will only attract people's attention, so you can only talk to me inside the dungeon. Now I need some seed money to trade and help me grow stronger. But the amount of money I have now is clearly not enough. Just as I was wondering how to get the seed money, suddenly, 500,000 appeared in my account. Checking the message, I found it was sent by my mother. It seems she was afraid I wouldn't have enough money. For the past 3 years, they've taken care of every detail of my life. I owe them so much. For now, I must increase my strength as quickly as possible to give my whole family a prosperous life. First, I bought 3 low-level summoning scrolls, making it 5 slots to enter the dungeon. The first one was a common F-rank slime. The second was also common, an F-rank horned butterfly. Fortunately, the last one was of slightly better quality, an E-rank venomous lizard. These guys seem like they'll be useful, except for that slimy slime. Now there's only one thing left to do. I must find a dungeon that suits my taste. Back when it was just a mobile game, I could enter just by tapping the screen. But it's not that easy anymore. I still haven't figured out what the real dungeons in this world are actually like. But when I searched for information online, I discovered that simply possessing a summon doesn't mean you are qualified to enter a dungeon. Dungeon entrances appear randomly, and no matter where they appear, you can judge the difficulty of the dungeon through the energy it emits. But the rules have changed now. No matter how easy it is to enter, only those officially registered as players are permitted. So I called by Genya. She told me the only way to enter is by passing a test. This is also to further control the number of players. After all, if everyone with a summon wanted to rush in and make a quick buck, the whole world would be in complete chaos. And I learned from her that in this world, there is also a ranking system among players. However, because our country's strength was too weak, we've never appeared on the rankings. If the legendary Reid were to appear, things would probably be very different. The next day, I went to the player registration site. After submitting my materials, I realized that from among 1,000 candidates, only 50 would be chosen as players. Even with my eyes closed, I can tell how hard this is. Not long after, inside a cafe, Chairman Park Chung-hee was sitting there reviewing registration files. At that moment, a sudden explosion smashed the wall behind him. Then, a man was seen walking in with his summon. "You killed all my brothers, yet you act as if you don't care." The chairman also summoned his own creature. "You lunatic. It seems you really want to clash with me." Tension peaked, and it looked like a fierce battle was about to begin. Meanwhile, I was also sitting in the cafe. I had never seen such a crazy scene in the real world outside of the game. Since the game descended, this was the first time I had witnessed a fight between summoners. The one facing the judge was a criminal, possessing a powerful summon. This terrifying aura couldn't help but attract the attention of everyone present, because Judge Park Chung-hee had never been soft. When dealing with criminals, they weren't very afraid. However, everyone still brought out their summons to set up protective shields, and I was caught in the middle, preparing to watch how the battle unfolded. At this moment, Ram seemed to sense something and tried to come closer to talk to me, but I stopped it with a hand over its mouth. We agreed not to attract others. "Attention, you can't make a sound outside." Meanwhile, the man in the suit waved his hand, and his giant orc summon charged forward with a sharp axe. To be safe, I decided to hide in the back and watch. The judge then commanded his flame butterfly to shoot fireballs toward the orc. The powerful force momentarily engulfed a large area ahead. But after the smoke cleared, the orc was unharmed. Seeing this, the man immediately put on an arrogant expression, mocking the judge's lack of strength. Finding his attack had failed, Chung-hee also felt things were getting tricky. Meanwhile, hiding in the back, I was completely stunned. This fight was practically like playing house. At this rate, the judge is definitely going to lose this match. And once the man succeeds, he will undoubtedly be ruthless and slaughter innocent civilians. So I moved behind him to remind him how to strike. I told him the timing of the flame butterfly's skill was completely wrong. "Do you see that one-eyed monster behind the orc? It's applying a fire resistance buff to all the summons. That's why your fire attacks can't possibly hurt them. Every time the one-eyed monster uses its skill, the orc's body turns bright red. That is the effect of the buff it's granting. So, you should know what to do next, right?" After understanding my words, the judge immediately activated the flame turtle and launched an attack. Scorching flames swept across the orc's entire body. At the same time, the judge's treant sent vines bursting from the ground, instantly entangling the one-eyed monster while it was casting protection. Then, he ordered his fire summons to continue the fierce assault. In this way, he successfully burned the man's orc along with the other summons into ashes. Seeing that the battle was decided, the man suddenly, frantically deployed a protective shield, and then begged the judge to spare his life, saying that he would surrender. But before he could finish, the treant's vines tightly coiled around him, leaving him unable to move. And the judge's way of dealing with criminals has always been immediate execution. In the next moment, a violent force turned the man into a pool of blood. Seeing this, the surrounding crowd immediately cheered, shouting in unison, "Great job, Judge." But I was actually a bit stunned. In this world, killing people is now this effortless, without even needing a legal process. It seems I must be doubly cautious if I want to survive. Then, he walked over to thank me, and told me he was a member of the player headquarters council. "Thanks to you, I was able to suppress that terrorist. I want to reward you. May I ask which guild you're from?" But I told him that I wasn't yet a registered official player at the headquarters, which greatly surprised him. To be able to recognize one specific buff among thousands of types of summons, and yet not be an official player. At his insistence, I handed over my ID card. "Once the background check is complete, you will be rewarded according to regulations." "I see. Since everything is settled, I'll take my leave." After I left, Park Chung-hee made a phone call, instructing the other party to investigate my background. Afterward, I arrived at the park. After strolling around, I bought a donut as a reward for Ramu's silence. Watching this fellow devour it greedily, I felt it was exceptionally pure. I've heard that other players occasionally bicker with their summons. I'm just glad that a single donut could make it this happy. The changes in this world are more drastic than I imagined. It seems I need to push my action plan forward. Now I need to gather summoning scrolls and summon my next creature as soon as possible. First and foremost is collecting the instructor and a dragon-type mage who can control explosions. Since they are level 1 and D-rank monsters, I can easily use low-level summoning scrolls to pull them out. Meanwhile, Park Chung-hee received the reported intelligence. The reason I hadn't become a player was because I had been in a coma for 3 years after a car accident. At that time, the game happened to merge with reality, and accidents occurred frequently. So, this was a very common occurrence. However, as soon as he woke up, he submitted an application to the headquarters to register as a player. Hearing this, Park Chung-hee hurriedly sifted through the files, turning to, "Regardless, I will personally proctor the exam this time." Registering as a player right after waking up means he possesses skills beyond imagination. I arrived at the player exam site as agreed. To become a player, one must defeat all the opponents here. But for me, this is quite easy. After all, no one could understand this game better than me. But what I didn't expect was that the examiner for this test was actually Park Chung-hee, whom I fought at the cafe yesterday. After explaining the exam rules, he asked to meet me privately. As soon as he started, he asked bluntly if I was a former game player. According to him, 70% of the players on the leaderboard were former game players. Not wanting to stand out too much, I only told him I'd been playing for a year. Hearing this, he seemed exceptionally excited, convinced that I was a veteran from the old days. After suppressing his emotions, he told me that because of my help last time, he had thought of 2 reward options. First, with my authority, I can register you on the spot as an official player, and I can even arrange a position for you at the headquarters. I wasn't very interested in this proposal. After all, I could easily register on my own. The second option was an immediate 5 million won reward. At this moment, Park Chung-hee was certain I would choose the first one. After all, who could refuse a stable job at the headquarters? But to his surprise, as soon as he mentioned the second option, I simply and decisively chose the cash, which left him quite speechless. To this, I explained that I had no intention of working at the headquarters. Moreover, registering as a player is just a matter of time. Then, I walked up to the portal for the dungeon exam. The exam was to clear as many Tuesday dungeons as possible within 1 day. For safety, as soon as I stepped inside, I cast a protective shield. Right now, the system notifies me that the room is filled with poisonous slimes. I must defeat all of them to escape this place. So, I decisively ordered Ram to wave her staff. Then, she buffed the attack speed of the gorilla beside her. The structure of the Tuesday dungeon is like a maze. Once you defeat the slimes and find the way out, you'll encounter the final boss. This is the area where beginners waste time and get disoriented. However, with my experience, I can easily find the exit. Moreover, those slow-moving slimes can't catch up to me at all. Soon, I followed a shortcut and found the exit to leave this place. After I stepped through, the system notified me that the dungeon boss was about to appear. And this was the first time I saw a slime king outside of the game. Then, I sent in the gorilla, whose speed had been buffed by Ram, to engage in battle. In the next moment, a single strike crushed the slime into mush. Since the Slime King could regenerate on its own, the gorilla continued to destroy its body at an extremely high speed, which left me astonished. I didn't expect the attack speed boost from Ram to be so insane. Even an F-rank summon had reached this level of speed. Just imagine how incredible this attack speed would be on other summons. Shortly after, the system popped up a notification of successfully slaying the boss monster. The clear time was 5 minutes and 32 seconds, but I still felt it was too slow. If I still had my strength from the game, I could have ended the battle in 1 minute. But to my surprise, this time actually broke the Korean fastest record and earned a special achievement. This also unexpectedly gave me 3 high-grade summoning scrolls and 2 low-grade magic materials. At the same time, the inspector monitoring from outside was utterly shocked. He didn't expect anyone to break a long-standing record and cut the time by nearly half. Then, while checking the data, he discovered I wasn't a top-ranked expert. This shocked them even more. The record breaker was actually a beginner. Meanwhile, the high-ranking officials at headquarters also received this report. Park Chung-hee concluded that I could be called a national treasure. He ordered that I must be protected at all costs. Furthermore, he must not be allowed to take another nationality, otherwise our country will face a disaster. Let's register him as a player immediately. What? Shouldn't he compete against other players? As everyone knows, clear times are divided into national and global categories. Jiang Jianhao ranks first in Korea with a time of 6 minutes and 41 seconds. Rachel firmly holds her position as world number 1 with a time of 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Now, Baek Jinwoo has completely turned the Korean record upside down. So, do you think there's any point in asking him to fight other players? In my opinion, those with talent should receive special treatment. Not long after stepping out of the dungeon, I was still a bit dazed. I didn't expect them to be so poor that I could take the top spot in just 5 minutes. Just then, Park Chung-hee ran toward me with excitement all over his face. Looking at him, it was obvious he already knew I had broken the record. After praising me for a while, he stuffed the business card. Into my hand. Looking at the information, it was clear I had been successfully registered as a player. At this moment, Park Chung-hee was full of doubt about how I managed to break this record. This left me momentarily unsure of how to answer. If I were to reveal everything I know now, Korea's standard would definitely soar. The problem is, what situations would arise in the future? If I'm lucky, I could enjoy wealth and glory with the state's support. But on the other hand, I might be forcibly taken away and coerced into revealing every piece of information. So, I had to tell him that this was a player's strategy and wouldn't be shared with others. Although he urgently wanted to raise Korea's level of strength, he couldn't pry too deeply into a player's private guide. Looking at Park Chung-hee, he didn't seem like a bad person. He had immediately transferred the promised funds to me. Moreover, his character wasn't bad, and he knew how to maintain boundaries. Perhaps I could use the state's resources to help myself develop. So, I invited him to a quiet corner to talk. As soon as we sat down, Park Chung-hee pleaded for my help. Because headquarters desperately needed my professional insight. According to the intelligence we gathered, we heard you were in the hospital for a whole year. I apologize for checking your information without permission. But a skilled and unregistered player could be a member of a gang. Since I am now registered, there's no need to dig any deeper. Don't do that again in the future. He was somewhat surprised by my attitude. Usually, as long as the word country is mentioned, people get scared and cooperate as much as possible. But there wasn't a hint of that in this person. He knew his own worth. Alright, I've considered it. What can I get in exchange for providing assistance to the state? Although I'm a bit reluctant to cooperate, my connections at headquarters are quite well managed. The management at headquarters is elected by the public. Therefore, if the results are impressive, I can gain many votes and further increase my ranking. For this reason, I can provide you with all the support within my authority. These conditions could indeed save me from a lot of trouble. So, I readily accepted his request, but the term was set for 1 month. Because I just finished registration, I'll focus on my growth and, when needed, request support. If I'm satisfied, I'll continue cooperating. This means he'll have to run errands for me like a secretary. A month. But after pondering for a moment, he agreed. After all, the ability I showed was worth gambling on. The first thing I asked him to do was not to leak my record-breaking achievement. Otherwise, I might attract the attention of people with bad intentions. Afterwards, I prepared to check the rewards for breaking the record. 3 high-grade summoning scrolls plus 2 magic materials were indeed quite generous. Although I wanted to open them on the spot, the probability of getting a high-grade summon was simply too low. Maybe I could sell them for a large sum of money. That's when I suddenly remembered the exclusive player network where everyone can trade freely. Park Chung-hee was the one who set it up and gave it to me. When I opened the market trading interface, I found a high-grade summoning scroll was actually selling for 1,000,000 won. This surprised me. It meant that in just 5 minutes in the dungeon, I earned a full 9 million. If I keep this up, I can definitely make sure my whole family lives without worrying about food or clothing. Maybe I could sell these 3 high-grade summoning scrolls, then use the money to hoard more low-grade summoning scrolls to gamble on the appearance probability of EX-grade summons. The only thing I couldn't understand was why low-grade summoning scrolls, which are everywhere, were still selling for 5,000. So I called my sister to ask what on earth was going on. After repeated questioning, she told me it's because the player HQ has been constantly buying them up. She wasn't sure of the exact reason. Maybe it was under the pretext of supporting high-ranking players. Or perhaps to stabilize the market, since the amount they buy daily is constant. But I heard it will be cancelled soon, because the HQ no longer needs so many low-grade summoning scrolls. From what she said, it seems the HQ has hoarded a massive pile of low-grade summoning scrolls. So the next day, I found Park Chung-hee and asked him to lend a hand. Seeing that I needed something, he seemed very eager. I didn't expect you to come to me so soon. Did you find something you want? Seeing this, I told him I needed as many low-grade summoning scrolls as possible. This surprised him greatly. Don't you need mid-grade or high-grade ones? I can get them for you, but if you plan to resell them, that's not it at all. They're already flooding the market, and they won't sell anyway. I plan to save some for myself. It seems you've already planned this out in your head. As expected, you're a player who doesn't play by the rules. Someone like him specifically gathering low-grade summoning scrolls, could he be planning something unique? I'll grant your request, but on one condition. Please give me some useful information, even if it's just a small bit. I reached the position of HQ council member through public votes. If others find out that summoning scrolls bought with tax money are being distributed randomly, I will completely lose the public's trust. So if you can provide information, I'll give you an equal number of low-grade summoning scrolls. After all, I have to keep a few tricks up my sleeve just in case. It seems he's just like I thought. He won't just give them to me for nothing. I actually prefer it this way. This means if I give him valuable information, he will respond with an equivalent attitude. First, there's something called shortening achievement time. Yes, the reward for the top domestic rank is 3 high-grade summoning scrolls for every dungeon cleared. But if another player breaks this record, this reward can be claimed once more. 5 minutes 30 seconds so if players take turns slowing down the time by seconds. So if players take turns slowing down the time by 30 seconds, they can obtain the maximum reward. 5 minutes 30 seconds. The nation's power will naturally rise accordingly. This is indeed a method we're used to. That's why everyone on the leaderboard has achieved this. Although many players haven't received a single reward, I don't think this is a particularly difficult problem. The information I'm about to reveal is the strategy for the Tuesday dungeon. I figured you'd show me the trick you used to break the record, right? Seeing him so excited, I felt a bit helpless. Actually, the method I'm talking about was once used by those 5 emperors. Correct. If this method is used, anyone can clear it within 3 minutes. However, we must settle the price of the information. In addition to the agreed low-grade summoning scrolls, add another 50 high-grade summoning scrolls. This shocked him. That's a massive sum of 150 million. A huge number. This is incredibly cost-effective. This trick doesn't just work in low-grade dungeons. Even high-grade dungeons can use this strategy. At the very least, it can bring you up to 1 billion in achievement rewards. Fine. If the information you provide is accurate, I'll transfer 150 million to you. And I can supply you with 10,000 low-grade summoning scrolls daily. After getting my secret, Park Chung-hee immediately called a meeting to test it. Everyone is aware that the Tuesday dungeon record has been broken, right? Yes, I heard his name is Baek Jin-woo and he's a rookie. Actually, this is all thanks to a strategy one managed to get from overseas. Baek Jin-woo is exactly my first test subject. So that's it. Is this why you announced that the record should not be spread around? So from now on, I will teach you all how to crush the Tuesday dungeon. And the core summoned creature for clearing the dungeon is this guy. Isn't this just a spotted Komodo dragon? Is there anything rare about it? A spotted Komodo dragon is about the size of an adult man. It has decent attack power and quite high defense. But when you actually use it, you'll find that this thing is not easy to raise. Compared to its status as a B-grade summon, its damage and tankiness are not particularly impressive. But what they didn't expect is that the spotted Komodo dragon's main food is exactly slimes. Put it in the dungeon, and it will automatically hunt slimes, thereby achieving a lightning-fast clear. In this way, every student who got the intel cleared the dungeon in just over 5 minutes. And they didn't expect the spotted Komodo dragon's appetite to be so fierce. It swept away all the slime mobs along the way in less than 4 minutes. After the gate, news began to report on the Tuesday dungeon's record. After the gate, news began to report on the Tuesday dungeon's record. This is all thanks to member Park Chung-hee of the headquarters. Valuable information. Hey, member Chung-hee obtained it from overseas at a low cost. Valuable information. Member Park Chung-hee obtained valuable information from overseas at a low cost. Valuable information. Member Chung-hee obtained valuable information from overseas at a low cost. This just confirmed one conclusion. Baek Jin-woo is an extraordinary character who is far above other players. I've made up my mind. Let's build a team specifically to operate for Baek Jin-woo. As for the candidates, I choose you 3. Meanwhile, I soon received a notification of a transfer of 150 million Korean won. Korean won notification. Meanwhile, I soon received a notification of a transfer of 150 million Korean won. I didn't expect making money to be this easy. Ramu couldn't help but exclaim that this much money could buy a lot of honey bread. Also, the 10,000 low-grade summon scrolls he promised me every day arrived on schedule. Now that the promise has been fulfilled, it's time for me to get down to business. I hope God will be kind and let me get a summon that I can actually use. I just hope this isn't the start of my suffering. As expected, it didn't escape my predictions. For a whole hour, over 3,000 scrolls were all F-grade useless summons. Do you really think EX-grade things would just pop up that easily? Although you got me on your first try, that was purely because your luck was off the charts. To summon an existence of the same grade as me, even 100,000 scrolls would be far from enough, let alone a mere 10,000. I see you know absolutely nothing about the entire summon system. The total number of summoned beasts is exactly 10 times the number of players. Therefore, with such a huge base, it's extremely difficult to draw one. Although it's confirmed that only you can summon those isolated summons, you can summon them. But there are thousands of types of summons, and the number of each is frighteningly exaggerated. So simply put, your chances of summoning another EX-grade isolated summon like me are slimmer than winning the lottery. But don't worry too much. Once a summon type appears, that category will never appear again. Hearing you say that, it's still incredibly difficult. Should I try my luck with mid-grade or high-grade summon scrolls? And see if I'm lucky? No, that would actually be less efficient because they are overpriced and scarce in circulation. It seems I have no choice but to bite the bullet and rely on quantity to win. And so, 2 weeks passed. This summoning ritual practically wore me out completely. In these 2 weeks, I tore through 140,000 low-grade summon scrolls. Yet I still didn't encounter any powerful summons. I even specifically rented a room right next to the player area just to make it easier to synthesize summons. After that, I went to the synthesis center in the player area. This place used to be a quite famous hotel. Now it has transformed into a place dedicated to serving players. Then, as usual, I went to the place specifically for synthesizing summons. Today, I continued synthesizing my Wind Fairy, Ramu. Wind Fairy Ramu. After I pressed synthesize, those useless things summoned by low-grade scrolls all turned into nutrients needed for Ramu's upgrade. Now its level has climbed to level 2, and its intelligence also increased by 2 points. This left me a bit helpless. I didn't expect that 140,000 summons would only raise it to level 2. Seeing this, Ramu kept asking if she had become very sturdy now. To this, I could only coax her, "You're the best in the whole world." But in my heart, I was thinking that at this rate, in which lifetime will I ever reach the max level of 100? Because lately, low-grade summon scrolls aren't nearly enough for me to squander. So I asked Park Chung-hee to take the 100 million 50 million he gave me and exchange it all for summoning scrolls. After understanding my needs, he immediately ordered his subordinates to take the low-grade summoning scrolls and sell them all to me at half price, because he was certain I had my own plans for doing this, and he firmly believed that before long, would become this country's hero. Meanwhile, I continued to hide in a deserted corner, mechanically tearing low-grade summoning scrolls, while Ramu prayed incessantly by my side, hoping I could at least summon a usable summon. Just then, the sound of footsteps caught my attention. Then a woman in a suit told me she was from headquarters. Then a woman in a suit told me she was from headquarters. Her purpose for coming was to inform me of the result of the request I made to headquarters for scrolls. Before I could react, she continued talking on her own. "Given your recent performance and contributions, headquarters will sell them to you at 50% of the price. Additionally, headquarters plans to allocate 100 million in funds to sponsor your actions." Hearing these generous terms, I froze in place. However, I must emphasize to you that from now on, you must keep this a secret. And I hope you understand that this is all to maintain the relationship between you and us. Alright, I've said everything. If you're busy, I'll take my leave. Watching her walk away, it seems the headquarters council members now fully trust me, so I must quickly pull an EX grade summon to properly repay them. But it's easier said than done. For days now, everything I've summoned has been useless trash. These useless summons could only end up becoming experience points for Ramu. Just as I was feeling discouraged, a bolt of lightning suddenly shot out from a low-grade summoning scroll. This effect was exactly the same as when Ramu was first summoned. Then I received a notification that I had obtained the EX grade summon. Poklong notification. This immediately made Ramu and me hug each other in excitement. After so many days of agony, I finally got it. But now is not the time to relax. I must take advantage of this good luck and keep pulling. To my surprise, the next pull was exactly what I wanted, an EX grade trainer. This made me unable to help but exclaim, could it be that the system finally took pity on me and gave me a double guarantee? At first, he was just an E rank, and weak in combat, so few were willing to summon him. But in reality, this guy's true value lies in the fact that he is an absolute training maniac who can make himself stronger through training. His charisma skill can keep other summons in check. Looking at him alone, this mentor's strength is weak and his basic skills are not impressive. But once he develops and gains the mentor skill, he can unlock the potential of other summons, and greatly accelerate their growth pace. This is why I tried so hard to summon him. Meanwhile, Ramu beside me couldn't help but complain that he didn't want to become so muscular. After that, I greeted him. "Coach, long time no see." "Coach, how do you know my nickname? Could you be Reid?" "That's right, just as you said, I am that person you're talking about." Hearing this, he immediately knelt on one knee. "Master, this is simply unbelievable. For some reason, I was sealed away. I never dared to imagine that I would see you again." At that moment, Poklong also walked over and asked if I was truly the rightful master. This was the first time I had heard him speak. The mage Poklong was once a D-grade summon. Despite his cute appearance, he hides quite powerful flame explosive power. First, his first skill allows him to blast a beam of dragon-shaped flames forward. The second skill is Devour. Every time he kills a boss, it will permanently increase the skill's lethality. But without the coach's guidance, the Devour skill cannot be activated. Looking at the energetic Poklong before me, I felt full of joy. Then I told them never to call me by my old name again. From now, just call me Baek Jin-woo. It's already late, let's go home and get some rest. After returning home, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep as soon as I hit the bed. It seems Master exhausted all his energy by summoning us. Then Ramu asked, "You're that mentor, right? We've met once before, but since I was summoned earlier than you, can I call you number 3? Suit yourself, that doesn't matter to me. The important thing is that our current strength as 3 is far too meager. We are far from qualified to accomplish anything for Master. So even while Master is resting, we must continue training. Next is you, Poklong. Now sit down and focus your attention to sense your own magic power. When I wake up later, I'll help you activate the Devour function first. And you, Ramu, you're not allowed to be lazy either. First, you need to increase your swing speed, so next, you will do strength training with me. But I'm just a little fairy, do I really need strength training? Of course you do. Let's start with that pot. You need to lift it up 5,000 times. Meanwhile, on the other side, because the director gave an order that from now on, Park Chung-hee is not to be provided with low-grade summoning scrolls. This took him by complete surprise. The director is busy every single day, so why would he care about such a trivial matter? Besides that, they also demanded a detailed report, explaining how you have used all the low-grade summoning scrolls up until now. It seems Assemblyman Lin Shishio is pulling strings behind the scenes. The report has been drafted, but if headquarters doesn't approve the scrolls, we won't be able to get any closer to Baek Jin-woo. Just as Park Chung-hee was wondering how to settle this, he received a text from me. In the text, I told him that there's no need to supply me with low-grade summoning scrolls anymore, as I've already obtained what I wanted. Hearing this, Park Chung-hee let out a long sigh of relief. Now that Baek Jin-woo no longer needs them, I should free myself up to settle the score with that bastard. Taking advantage of the good weather, I went to an ordinary dungeon. In the game, there are 4 types of dungeons. First is the daily dungeon, used for gathering resources. Second is the Tower of Trials, which is far more difficult than an ordinary dungeon. Although the death rate is terrifying, the rewards are exceptionally generous. The third is the Chaos Demon Dragon instance, which requires players to team up to conquer. Everything else is classified as an ordinary dungeon, which is exactly where I am heading right now. If a dungeon remains unconquered for too long after appearing, the monsters inside will break out. After verifying my identity, the administrator let me in. The next moment, I suddenly dropped from midair into the dungeon. Looking at the scene inside, it was clearly a chaotic mess. Many armored warriors were locked in a bloody battle with orcs. At this moment, soldiers on the ramparts were screaming for everyone to push down the orcs climbing up. When I played the game before, it didn't affect me much, but now it looks so real. It's obvious these ordinary soldiers are no match for these giant orcs. After a companion was injured, other teammates immediately called for a healer to come and support them. This vivid scene felt just like a real war. Then, I activated my protective shield. Immediately after, I summoned my 5 creatures to prepare for battle. Not long ago, I obtained a D-rank Golden Fairy and a D-rank Mini Kong. It would be hard to find better choices for a tank and a healer. Then, I ordered Ramu to wave her staff to stack attack speed on them. Meanwhile, Poklong stood in the rear, ready to provide fire support. Once everything was planned, I immediately ordered Mini Kong to pounce on the orc leader to take him down. These types of orc dungeons aren't actually complex. You just need to defeat their leader, and the rest of the minions are insignificant. The orc leader then grabbed his sharp blade and slashed at Mini Kong. But as the character with the strongest physical defense among D-rank summons, how could he be taken down so easily? At that moment, Ramu kept waving her staff to buff the entire team's attack speed. The next moment, the coach leaped straight from the ramparts and vanished from the spot. With Ramu's attack speed buff, this lightning-fast strike swept through several orcs in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, the Golden Fairy provided healing to injured companions at any moment. With the combination of attack speed and health regeneration, Mini Kong soon overpowered the orc leader. This left the soldiers on the ramparts astonished. Could they be the allied forces coming to help? At the same time, Poklong chanted an incantation to prepare an attack. Then, a blast of flame in the form of a giant dragon rushed into the battlefield. The ferocious power instantly turned the surrounding orcs into a sea of fire. Shortly after, as the coach beheaded the orc leader with a sword, I soon received a system notification that the dungeon had been cleared. This raid boosted Poklong's level by 5 and its intelligence by 2 points. The coach also increased by 5 levels. However, there was an extra 1% critical hit rate. And my reward was a mid-grade summoning scroll worth 500,000 won. I didn't expect to make this much money in just 2 minutes. It seems I should continue searching for the next dungeon. While leveling up my summons, I'll keep making money. It's time to completely turn my life around through endless grinding. Meanwhile, Assemblyman Park Chung-hee was slouching listlessly in his office. The subordinate couldn't help but sigh. How did you have the nerve to make such a bet? Not long ago, because of that previous incident, the two of them argued all the way to the conference room. I was just making a suggestion, because this guy who looks like an assembly worker is wasting the budget. What right does he have to call himself a talent management team? You can't even train one decent recruit, so what right do you have to call yourselves a talent management team? This guy has never nurtured a single prospect who could make it into the national team. That bastard, I really want to teach him a lesson. But among the players Lin Shishio trains, members are selected every year for the national team. But I can't just keep waiting like this. What would happen if a member I train now enters the national team? Then what? Are you really that confident? Then do you dare to make a bet? The national team holds 10 people at most. Let's see who can secure more seats. The loser must resign voluntarily and admit the other is more capable. Dropping out halfway will result in a fine of 1 billion. Your reason for agreeing isn't because you believe in Baek Jin-woo, is it? Although he's stronger than ordinary players, compared to the characters on the rankings, he's still far behind. I believe in him. With the right support, he'll bring us critical intelligence. Just then, a subordinate rushed in, pushing the door open in a hurry. Didn't you ask me to investigate the player who single-handedly crushed several Earth-grade dungeons recently? The results are in. That player is indeed Baek Jin-woo. How is that possible? He's been logged in for less than a month, yet he cleared an Earth-grade dungeon in 5 minutes. Hearing this, Park Chung-hee couldn't help but laugh out loud. I told you long ago that Baek Jin-woo is the key. Great. I knew I could rely on this guy. As expected, I should trust my own judgment. My eye for talent is truly pinpoint accurate. After these days of raiding, I have already saved 16 million. Having this much money makes me feel like I'm in a dream. In these few days, I've been like a demon, conquering 160 Earth-grade dungeons. This was all thanks to the 2 new EX-grade summons, which made it so easy. And this is the total income one got from selling all my ultimate summon scrolls. But from now on, I need to split my accounts. One account will be specifically for living expenses. Then I'll set up a family account so they can properly improve their living conditions. I plan to invest the rest entirely into summons. After all, the strength of the summons is the value of my status as a player. After these days of non-stop dungeon grinding, everyone's level has simultaneously reached level 30. It's time to get some runes to strengthen them. To do this, repeatedly grinding the daily dungeons is the only solution. But to clear the daily dungeons quickly, I'm still missing a core summon. I wonder if there are any listed for sale on the market. Just then, I found that the average price for C-grade summons is 20 million. And B-grade ones even cost 200 million. This shocked me. My current net worth probably can't even afford a single one. Moreover, there's not even a trace of A-grade or S-grade summons here. But that makes sense. Even with high-grade scrolls, the chance of summoning a B-rank summon is only a few %. While I was pondering this, an idea suddenly occurred to me. Since this is the situation, maybe I can find someone to help. Meanwhile, after receiving my request, the subordinate immediately pushed open Park Chung-hee's office door. Representative, the player Baek Jin-woo has sent a new request. Really? What did he tell you? Did he mention any fresh intelligence? Seeing this, the subordinate placed the phone directly in front of him. I see that I listed for him. I listed a long string of summons I wanted to buy. I listed for him. I listed a long string of summons I wanted to buy. I listed for him. A long string of summons I wanted to buy. This situation immediately made Park Chung-hee jump in shock. How could it be like this? If the headquarters had paid for these for me back then, would I still be using C-grade summons now? Did he say that if we prepare them for him, he will tell me? He said he would tell us the secrets to speedrunning the daily dungeons. Not just the Monday or Wednesday dungeons, but all the daily dungeons. Yes, he was very generous. He's going to teach us far more than just one dungeon. I understand the situation. I'll bring this up with the HQ supervisor. But after reporting it, he returned in a rage, bursting back into the office. What an uncivilized old fossil. Refusing to approve such talent is why our country is always at the bottom. Honestly, if only every representative had that kind of passion. What did the supervisor say to make you this angry? He told me to provide evidence before making any requests and to give him a clear plan. But how can a dungeon be cleared without any summons? If this is true, it would shake the world. Yet HQ is too stupid to even realize it. Indeed, HQ is truly disappointing. Giving such vital intel to HQ for a mere 1.3 billion, isn't that a bit too cheap? Representative Park Chung-hee, why don't I just pay that amount myself? Hearing this, Park Chung-hee was stunned, suddenly remembering her true background. In fact, she is the 4th granddaughter of Korea's top Chaebol family. Since childhood, she underwent the family's full Chaebol-style grooming. But her interest in players was far greater than in management rights. And the player who currently intrigues her most is Baek Jin-woo. He possesses so much information. It's hard to believe he's a rookie bold enough to make a deal with the state. What if I set up a private management agency on my own? I would bet everything on Baek Jin-woo. That way we can split the profits half and half. This way, he can properly use that information, and then we can split the profits half and half. It will be completely different from our current talent management team, and there would be no need to worry about money. I have more money in my account than I can even count. But first, I need to meet Baek Jin-woo again to confirm my idea. Yu-jia invited me to a hotel for a detailed discussion. I didn't expect them to act on my request so quickly. 300 million won is not a small amount. And the place she invited me to was actually a 5-star hotel. This was my first time experiencing such luxury. A hotel and such attentive waiters. I had already looked into Yu-jia's background in the news. I didn't expect that as the youngest daughter of a Chaebol, she would actually work at the player HQ. When I arrived at the meeting spot, I found that she was there alone. Seeing this, she told me that today's meeting was arranged in her personal capacity, not on behalf of HQ. Unfortunately, it seems HQ can no longer support any of your decisions. Representative Park Chang-hee put in a lot of effort, but HQ still has many people who strongly oppose it. I didn't really care about that. Even without their help, it wouldn't really affect me. Then, Yu-jia suddenly told me that she planned to start her own company, specifically to operate for you. Hearing this, I was stunned. This was clearly good news for me. Without all those messy HQ rules, I could also guarantee her enough profit. Moreover, with Yu-jia's status as a Chaebol's daughter, she would surely pay a high price for my intel. Thus, our conversation during the meal went exceptionally smoothly. Therefore, Yu-jia immediately decided to get started, even though I hadn't signed a contract with her yet. This made me admire the decisive actions of Chaebols. A few days later, my sister was wandering the streets despondently. I wonder what that brother of mine is so busy with, that he won't even answer the phone. And I heard he even bought himself a large house all his own. Just then, she suddenly saw a beautiful woman walking past. She was excessively beautiful. This face, I seem to have seen it somewhere. After thinking for a moment, she suddenly remembered a post she had seen on social media. What? I can't believe she is actually you. Jia. What is she doing here? Meanwhile, the trainer was training the rest of the summons. The other summons under my command were all so exhausted they couldn't even lift their feet. Just then, he suddenly noticed some movement behind him. Everyone be quiet. It seems someone is coming this way. Then I turned around and found it was Yu-jia, who had made an appointment with me. Hello everyone. I didn't expect you to work so hard from early morning. Until now, still training. It looks like you've put together a quite decent team. It's just that there are some summons I've never seen before. These are all my primary summons. I'll introduce them to you one by one in a moment. Alright. Then I won't beat around the bush. I came here to give you a gift. The next moment, a system window popped up before my eyes. Do you wish to accept Yu-jia's trade? In this game, people can privately buy, sell, and transfer their summons to each other. But the prerequisite is that you cannot deceive the other party with tricks. Otherwise, you could be sanctioned by the system and electrocuted to death. When I opened the trade list, the ones I had mentioned, summons were all neatly listed there. Baekjinwo, all the summons are neatly arranged inside. So I immediately pressed the agree button. The moment the transaction was completed, several streams of energy surged into my body. I'm very grateful. This is an incredibly precious gift. It's my pleasure. Now then, can we talk about business? Under the company structure I've set up, 70% of the shares go to you, 25% go to me, and another 5% will be allocated to Assemblyman Park Chang-hee. The Assemblyman will remain at headquarters to coordinate for us from the inside. Also, I plan to hire 2 people from the current headquarters team as employees. I offered them 3 times their current salary, so they resigned decisively early this morning. I'm grateful, but 70%. Are you sure you want to give me that much? That's just how I bet. I only want a steady 25%. However, in exchange, I have the ability to make the value of this 25% reach its maximum. At this moment, Yu-jia was calculating. Voting rights aren't important. What really matters is the relationship with Baek Jin-woo. Now is the time to set aside other greed and first strengthen the relationship between us. With such generous terms, I naturally couldn't refuse. So I immediately nodded and agreed to the partnership. Since our contract has been signed, I'll be in your care from now on. Just then, the trainer suddenly noticed movement behind them. He realized someone was hiding in the bushes. With a blur of movement, he vanished from his spot and dashed toward the bushes. A moment later, the sound of a scuffle came from the bushes. Then, the trainer emerged, carrying my sister, Baek Jong-ah, and her summon. This surprised me. I didn't know why. She was hiding there eavesdropping on us. The trainer quickly caught Baek Jong-ah eavesdropping. And all this was because she's a die-hard fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! So she wanted to know what exactly the relationship between me and her was. Moreover, she was extremely excited, repeatedly asking how things were between us. Seeing her eagerness to dig up every detail, I decided to tell her everything. In short, you're a top player in the game. So you're the one who broke the dungeon records before, right? I didn't expect you to have the patience to play such a trashy game, to have the patience to play it. Although I told her everything else, I didn't tell her that I am Kim Reid. It's not that I don't trust her, but for the sake of safety. My family, who took care of me for 3 whole years. I can't drag them into a dangerous vortex. Before I've thought everything through, I must first become strong enough to protect them, before I dare reveal my true identity to others. But brother, why did you wait until now to tell me this? I'll explain it clearly to mom and dad later. So for now, keep it a secret. Right now, the trainer is training other summons. Because of my order, they didn't dare make a sound. Then, the trainer shifted his gaze to Jong-ah's C-rank shadow elf. Seeing this, I wanted to tell her some unknown things to help my sister increase her strength. If you plan to continue upgrading the shadow elf, then raise a shadow wolf as well and use them together. Without a shadow wolf, I'm afraid your efficiency won't even reach 10%. A shadow wolf? There's such a summon. She immediately picked up her phone to look up the summons data. But when Baek Jong-ah glimpsed the price of the shadow wolf, she was completely stunned. Brother, you're not joking with me, are you? The shadow wolf costs 500 million. Even if I work hard for another 20 years, I can't save that much. Work hard for 20 years and still can't save that much. No need to worry about it. I will settle it for you within a month. Really? This thing is worth 500 million. Even though you've become a famous player, earning that much money isn't easy. I'll just save up slowly on my own. Relax, if I said it, I'll make it happen. No need to worry about the money. Why do I feel something is off? Brother, seems like a completely different person. A week passed quickly. After joining the company, I plan to explore the Monday dungeon. This is the gear you'll need to wear every day when raiding dungeons, Mr. Jin Woo. Our company's primary business is in the information sector. Currently, we are selling some clear recordings of the interior of the dungeon. Clear recordings of the dungeon interior. And this new set of equipment is exactly what's needed to achieve this goal. Once you put it on, it will use full 3D to record the environment around you. It's lightweight and fits well, so you won't feel any discomfort. When I put it on, I indeed found that it's no different from ordinary clothes. However, this process is a bit too formal. The pressure is even greater than raiding a dungeon. This is my first time entering the Monday dungeon. I'm not sure if the environment inside is dirty. Is this okay? It's fine, we'll cut some clips anyway. Okay, if I go in and immediately break the national record, would that be okay? No problem, don't be nervous, just like when you were still a gamer, just take it easy. The national record for the dungeon is 7 minutes. I'm confident I can break it easily. This is a defense-type dungeon. Normally, you have to hold out through one wave, followed by waves of undead onslaught for 30 minutes. But the people on the global leaderboards all use a different strategy, even though it's labeled as a defense dungeon. If you directly defeat the final Fox Demon King, the game will end instantly. Right now, heading straight for the boss is the best plan. This outfit seems to be working well. Then, I opened the system panel, selecting the summons to deploy. Long before this, I had already organized them into 3 teams, and each player can only create a maximum of 3. I've already categorized them for trial, PvP, and daily dungeons. Next, the squad I summoned consisted of the trainer, Mini Kong, and the newly joined combat sheriff. Logistics were handled by Peacemaker and Golden Angel. Now, a system prompt appears. The evil wizards' undead army is swarming in. Hold the position until reinforcements arrive. Then, a 30-minute countdown appeared on the screen. These terrifyingly numerous undead legions. If ordinary summons were used to tank, they probably wouldn't stand a chance. But they couldn't even break Mini Kong's defense. Then, I saw Mini Kong grab the skull of a skeleton soldier. With brute force, a single strike completely crushed it into fragments. Mini Kong quickly cleared the surrounding skeleton soldiers. The current goal is to eliminate the boss behind these minions as quickly as possible. Seeing this, I messaged all the summons. Move to the high ground now. Hearing this, the trainer nodded in agreement with my judgment. As expected, noticing that I was filming, he immediately switched to body language to communicate. While moving to a new position, I noticed there were 27 minutes left. I have to rush there within 2 minutes. But there were still batches of mobs clinging tightly behind us. But they were all elegantly and easily dealt with by the trainer. And Mini Kong, who was covering the rear, picked up a skeleton soldier's skull. Then, a single throw instantly pierced through the opponent's body. This gave me a chill regarding their combat power. Fortunately, they are all my summons. After climbing high, I ordered the combat sheriff to set up his Barrett and aim at the target. The combat sheriff has an extremely long range and astonishing accuracy, but the destructive power they produce is too weak. So in the past, almost no one wanted to use him. But in the low-level Monday dungeon, he is practically a lifesaver, because the Lich King's HP isn't that high. At this moment, I told the combat sheriff to stay steady and not fire yet. Then, I ordered Peacemaker to cast Radiant Blessing on him. The effect of this blessing is not complicated. It can strip away the Lich King's dark shield that grants immunity to ranged attacks. Meanwhile, the trainer, who was clearing the skeleton soldiers, was doing his best to harvest them. And Mini Kong, fighting side by side with him, possessed equally terrifying strength. Even when surrounded by skeleton soldiers, he showed no fear. With Golden Angel by his side, ordinary wounds could heal instantly. Meanwhile, under my command, the combat sheriff pulled the trigger on the boss. However, the damage dealt was truly painful to watch. Each shot only took off 2 points of his HP. Compared to others, this damage is indeed negligible. Normally, because the runes the sheriff carries are weak and his level is low, it would take a very long time to wear him down. This is exactly why everyone says he's too inefficient, and rarely uses this summon. At this moment, Mini Kong, who was being besieged, seemed exhausted, even with Golden Angel continuously injecting vitality. Just then, a skeleton soldier suddenly emerged from an unusual path. Mini Kong, who tried to step in and help, was also forcibly pinned down by the surrounding skeleton soldiers. I wasn't panicked at all, just standing straight in place. In an instant, the skeleton soldier about to pounce on my face was pierced through by a long sword emerging from behind me. The trainer already had extensive combat experience, so I didn't need to worry about this level of sneak attack. Moreover, I had previously asked the trainer to unlock the chains of potential for the combat sheriff, allowing him to master a brand new killing move. So, with this new ultimate skill, he could finish off even a top-tier wizard in one shot. Finally, a gunshot rang out, hitting the wizard precisely. As he fell, the system displayed success. Defeated the dungeon boss. The clear time was an unheard of 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Because I broke the Korean record, I earned a special achievement. At the same time, outside, Yu-Gi-Ah was anxiously waiting for my dungeon conquest ranking. It's only been a week since the new summons were given to you. Even if you couldn't break the record, I would naturally still support you. But can Baek Jin-woo really break all the daily dungeon records? Breaking the record for the Monday dungeon is certainly a remarkable feat. But he hasn't explained at all how he plans to clear the other dungeons. Korea hasn't lacked experienced veterans over the years. I'm afraid he's just bluffing. It's fine. It's all my own money being invested anyway. Risk is naturally part of the deal. But you don't need to worry, I'll ensure that your professional careers won't crash. After all, working under me is something others can only dream of. Moreover, Baek Jin-woo still has more things he's keeping strictly hidden from us. That overflowing confidence of his makes it seem as if this kind of dungeon isn't even worth mentioning. Just then, a cheer erupted in the monitoring room. The record was shattered. The Monday dungeon record suddenly jumped to 4 minutes and 12 seconds. A full 3 minutes cut off. This is simply unbelievable. Who on earth possesses such terrifying strength? When he clicked on the record breaker's avatar, everyone's breath instantly stopped, frozen in place. Unexpectedly, it was Baek Jin-woo. On his first attempt, he broke the record. At the same time, hearing this news, Yu-Gi-Ah couldn't contain her excitement. Her body began to tremble. Great, at least it's a beautiful start. If everything goes smoothly from here on, my decision will be a complete victory. I cleared the Monday dungeon with a brand new record. Then, a portal appeared before me, allowing me to leave this place. But before leaving, I have one more thing to handle. So, I manually turned off the camera on my body. From this second on, it's time to enter the combat grinding phase. In this game, after you clear the daily dungeons, you can activate the auto battle mode. This means the more my summons grind, the more rewards they'll get. When I pressed auto battle, a phantom figure, identical to me, appeared out of thin air. Then I summoned Ram and told him to be responsible for repeatedly farming the Monday dungeon. This left him a bit confused. Isn't this supposed to be the instructor's job? To this, I told him the instructor needs to train others. Do you want to be dragged into training too? Hearing this, various memories of being trained by the instructor immediately flooded Ram's mind. Those trainings left a deep shadow in his heart. Thinking of this, Ram tearfully agreed to farm the dungeon. Alright, let's keep moving forward. In the meantime, clear all the other daily dungeons completely. After that, I'll use auto battle to stack rewards, and also train the remaining summons. This can be called an extremely efficient process, with no time wasted. Then, I prepared to step out of the dungeon. I'll leave everything to you now, Ram. The moment I stepped out of the portal, I saw a strange sight. Yu-Gi-Ah had already led her subordinates to lay a red carpet where I was about to emerge. So, I took off the outfit I wore during filming and handed it to her. All the recordings are stored inside. You shouldn't need anything else besides this, right? Yes, I'll ensure this information doesn't leak. So, please don't worry about the news side of things. I told her that regarding the news of breaking the record, you can spread it as much as you like. Just please make sure to protect my family, because some gangs in the country act quite recklessly. I feel relatively at ease with Yu-Gi-Ah. I trust she can sufficiently ensure my family's safety. I understand. I will guard them well, even if I need to use my family's hidden power. After that, I continued to clear the other daily dungeons. The reason I used the Komodo dragon to clear them is because I am currently recording a video. This alone is enough to set a world record. If I embed movement speed runes into the spotted Komodo, and push the Wind Hawk's attributes to the limit, allowing its movement speed to increase further, breaking the record would be as easy as pie. If I later bring out their potential through training, I might even reach the 1-minute mark. After clearing it, I stopped the recording, and exited the Tuesday dungeon. The next goal is the Frozen Wednesday dungeon. In that place, I can scavenge defense runes. However, the weather there is bone-chillingly cold, which will severely suppress my movement speed. Then, I opened the panel to select the team for this dungeon expedition. The first to appear is the B-rank summon, Wind Hawk, plus the C-rank summon, Frost Spirit Cat, B-rank Titan Golem, and C-rank Horn Fairy. Finally, there's the Fire Mage Poklin. In this dungeon, summoning creatures with cold resistance is essential, and the Frost Spirit Cat happens to be one of them. The monsters in this dungeon are hulking yetis. This is exactly why I summoned the Tystone Golem. It can deploy an area shield to protect me from damage. Then, using the speed boost provided by the Wind Eagle, we can move at high speeds. The Wind Eagle then perched on the Tystone Golem's shoulder. The rest of us stepped onto its palm and climbed up to its shoulders. That way, we just had to cling tightly to the Tystone Golem's body to approach the destination quickly. However, this method of travel was quite a torture for me. It was like motion sickness. I could barely stand it. Just then, the Yetis in the distance hurled a live chat of giant snowballs. But these itch-like attacks couldn't break through the Golem's shield. The sense of security provided by the Tystone Golem was amazing. It was practically a perfect tank. But that's far from its only capability. In the next moment, the massive golem suddenly leaped from the ground and vanished. Then it landed steadily on a distant cliff wall. By taking this route that only a golem could cross, we could save a massive amount of time. After that, I told Poklin beside me to get ready, because the burden of crushing the boss now rested entirely on him. Then, the moment I gave the order, the golem used the cliff wall to launch itself high into the air. Immediately, a system notification appeared. The Yeti before us was the boss of this dungeon. This Yeti looked far more ferocious than the ordinary Yetis. Moreover, its body was covered in a crystal ice shield. Then, I ordered the Horn Fairy waiting nearby to act. Under the influence of her skill, The shield in front of the Yeti turned into muddy slush. This was the perfect opportunity for Poklin to launch his fire skill. A fierce fire dragon soared into the sky. The flames ignited by the skill instantly melted all the surrounding ice and snow. Then, the dragon roared and burned the dungeon boss to ashes. Thus, using this sequence of skills, we successfully cleared the dungeon in 4 minutes and 22 seconds. If all goes well, this score is enough to leave the leaderboard records far behind. But the clearing process was miserable from start to finish. Riding on the golem was so shaky it made me panic. I couldn't stop vomiting for a while. Not long after, I crushed Wednesday's record. Not long after, I crushed the weekly. Everyone was discussing who this guy named Baijan Yu actually was. To think he could break the records for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in a row. This series of feats naturally drew the nation's attention. They began to thoroughly investigate my background. Having broken records consecutively, I became the subject of intense discussion by everyone. All over social media, there were endless speculations about my strength. Wave after wave of battle reports naturally drew These successive battle reports naturally drew the attention of the headquarters' top executives. It seems this Baijan Yu is the person Assemblyman Park Chung-hee mentioned before, the one who said if we provided him with summons, he would give us intelligence in return. This proposal was blocked by Lim Hee-soo back then, right? Correct, because at the time, he stated that if we didn't provide the information first, he would never give us money. But looking back, all that information was true. What a pity. However, Assemblyman Lim Hee-soo's point wasn't entirely without merit. But in politics, the most important thing is always the result. If we had actually helped Baijan Yu back then, we would not only have garnered all the public praise, but also gained a huge number of votes. Lim Hee-soo has completely lost his appeal. He kicked away a blessing that had rolled right to his feet. Secretary, go and contact that person again. The player named Baijan Yu. Use any means necessary to bring him back to our side. At the same time, on the other end, I had entered the Thursday dungeon. Monday and Wednesday dungeons provide runes. Tuesday's dungeon produces magic materials. And now, the Thursday dungeon I need to clear will drop skill books. Although those skill books don't contain the unique skills of the summons themselves, nor the latent skills that can only be brought out by a trainer. But among them, there are occasionally some useful skills that drop, so it's still worth a trip. Thanks to this, I don't have to make another trip to the Sunday dungeon, because both Sunday and Thursday dungeons drop skill books. But the Thursday dungeon is much easier. But when I actually started the raid, I realized, warning, it wasn't as easy as I thought at all. Because as soon as you step into this dungeon, you'll immediately face a surprise attack from the boss. Moreover, the boss of this dungeon has incredibly high defense. My plan was to summon the B-rank White Wolf, and use a defense reduction skill to conquer it. Then, I opened the system panel to select the squad for battle. Also appearing this time was the Titan Stone Golem, that had previously crushed the Thursday dungeon. Next, I turned off the camera on my body. I couldn't upload this footage to the internet. After all, by using such powerful summons, others wouldn't be able to learn a single thing from it. It's like taking caviar from the fridge and going straight into a cooking competition. Just like going straight to a cooking competition, I only need to tell them to use the White Wolf to lower the defense, and then beat it down with a high damage combo. This doesn't mean there's absolutely no feasible way to break the record. Although this guy is as hard as a lump of iron, as long as you aim for the monster's head, it'll work. Its weakness is exactly there. And that's exactly why I chose the Titan Stone Golem. Using it to bridge the size gap makes things much easier. Then, before the battle, I had the Wind Falcon increase its movement speed. Then I told Ram to enhance its perception speed. With those two, it was enough to compensate for the Titan Stone Golem's clumsy body. Then, I ordered everyone else to aim at the boss's head and prepare to strike. The next moment, the two giants struck together. Taking advantage of this, the instructor quickly climbed up its shoulder. The moment he reached the attack position, the instructor whipped out his blade. With a flash of sword light and a brutal strike, he instantly decapitated the giant boss. At the same time, the flame mage poke then turned the flames into a giant dragon that lunged at the boss's face. Once the smoke cleared, the boss had been slain, leaving only its broken shell slumped on the spot. The clear time for this run was 5 minutes and 10 seconds, beating the top rank by a full minute. This trainer's displayed strength was clearly too overwhelming. It seems I'll have to leave him here to command the others to continue auto-battling. Moreover, Poke Dragon's strength was quite terrifying. A single casual strike could insta-kill the boss. If I leave, relying only on those two auto-battling, they wouldn't clear it in less than 10 seconds, would they? After I instructed them to continue clearing the dungeon, I stepped out through the portal. Then, a man approached me. He asked if I was the player by Genu. We are from the player headquarters, the supervisor's exclusive secretaries. Player by Genu, we have carefully reviewed the proposal you submitted last time. Since you've already shown the results, we naturally. Before he could finish, I cut him off. No need to tell me anymore, because now, I no longer need funding from the headquarters. This blunt scene immediately left the two secretaries, who had come to invite me, stunned in place, because I saw right through the headquarters' little schemes. When I needed help before, they refused to acknowledge me. Now that my records are dominating the rankings, they come running to build a relationship with me. In contrast, Lu Jia didn't hesitate to provide everything I urgently needed to help me. So, naturally, I couldn't possibly partner with them. If you have anything, go to the company partner. I just signed with Lu Jia. Go on. After dealing with this, I found a relatively spacious room. Friday's dungeon is completely different from the ones I've cleared so far. Other dungeons focus on using summons to kill monsters, but in here, the player must personally move to clear it. I should dive into practice right now and get ready. The moment I clicked summon, a creature with a massive B-rank flying dragon appeared before my eyes. And so, I climbed high into the sky on its back. Although the shield around me could block the damage caused by falling, the scene was still quite terrifying. Once I got the hang of it, I found this much more fun than I had imagined. So, before long, I wrote it, and prepared to set off for the East Sea. A few days later, I landed on an island. At that moment, the instructor said excitedly, "Your flight speed is simply too fast. It's so fast that even I feel inferior." Even back when we first mounted the flying dragons, we struggled for a long time. Looking back, in the game, those two really had ridden dragons and even dolphins. As expected of Lord Kim Reid, he is truly remarkable. Alright, next we'll practice the aerial dolphin-style glide. Right? For experienced guys like you, following along is the fastest way to learn, so I'm counting on you to teach. After a few days of trial and error, I smoothly entered the Friday dungeon. This is not only a dungeon where special runes drop, goal as fast as possible. Player run will start in 10 seconds. Reach but also the place where I earned the title, God of Time Attack. Player run will start in 10 seconds. Then, I summoned the Wind Falcon to increase my movement speed. Once the 10-second countdown finished, I would sprint forward with all my might. As soon as the starting whistle blew, I immediately bolted toward the destination. At the same time, I had to stay alert to dodge attacks from afar. Moreover, I had to move along the designated path. I must not step on those red squares. This is truly more exciting than pushing a joystick to move a character in a game. Now is the critical moment to dive into the first hidden route. There's a dead end ahead, so I'll dive straight into the sea. Normally, you'd have to swim through this area honestly, but I have another card up my sleeve. I immediately summoned the C-rank dolphin I had acquired earlier. By using the dolphin to travel underwater, I could bypass all the obstacles above. After dodging all the obstacle-ridden waters, I ordered the dolphin to leap powerfully out of the water. Then I summoned the flying dragon and landed steadily on its back. Now, I just need to fly over the remaining obstacles to get through smoothly. With the flight skills I've refined over these days, it didn't take much effort to steer it to the finish line. Then, very quickly, I cleared the dungeon in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Congratulations! You have broken the national record. Special achievement unlocked. I decided to give all the rewards I scavenged from the dungeon to my sister to manage. What's wrong, Baek Jong-ah? You don't look well. It's nothing, I was just thinking about something else. If there's something worrying you, just tell us. Talking about it might make you feel better. I'm truly touched. But my brother has become very popular lately, practically becoming a celebrity, and he wants me to keep this secret for him for now. So how could I possibly bring up that he's actually starting a company and making money by selling information? Of course, there must be a reason why he insists on me keeping it a secret. And even so, if I really expose the matter, it would definitely cause a lot of trouble for them. The feeling of having a secret that you can't tell anyone is truly suffocating. Just then, a notification popped up on her phone. Opening it, she saw a message from me asking her to come to our usual meeting spot to talk. This surprised her. Could it be that he's about to reveal some huge piece of news to her? So she hurriedly said goodbye to her two friends. Sorry, I have to go first. Didn't we agree a long time ago to have dinner together? Is there some urgent matter? I just got a call from my brother asking me to come over. Your brother is the one who was hospitalized and just woke up recently, right? Is he doing okay now? He's doing well. I'll tell you more next time we meet. I'm off. Then he rushed to the place where I used to meet him frequently, only to see many summons gathered on the back hill, fighting each other. Each summon seemed busy with its own task, as if they were undergoing training, and the one guiding their training on the side was the trainer standing right there. Is that the guy who beat my shadow elf last time? At the same time, the trainer noticed by Xenia, but he ignored her. How strange, we clearly agreed to meet. Where on earth is this guy? When she turned her head, she found that I had just finished the training and was walking toward her. The moment Xenia noticed my physique, she froze on the spot. Has your build always been like this? You used to be so skinny that even something slightly heavier than a phone was too much to carry. And what's the deal with the circle of summons around you? They all seem to be summons whose prices have skyrocketed recently. Currently, this kind of stock is nowhere to be found on the market, making them nearly impossible to buy. So how on earth do you have such rare things? I heard those are the clear game summons mentioned in the sold-out tapes. At that moment, she suddenly remembered something. Big brother, did you use those summons to break the record for the weekend dungeon? But where did you actually get these things? Moreover, you look so calm about it. To this, I told her, do you remember Lu Jia, whom you met before? She's the one who gave these summons to me. Why would she give you such expensive things for free? What exactly is your relationship with her? All of these combined must be worth billions, right? Anyway, let's get back to business. You've come at the right time. You're probably still making money by selling runes, right? I've saved up some stock for you to handle. Then I brought out a pile of items stored in the warehouse. These are all rewards I got from clearing dungeons. See if there's anything valuable in here. These are all runes with special effects. Any one of them could fetch a high price. It seems that because she had been selling runes for years, she had developed a keen eye. She could even recognize the full effects of low-profile runes, and quickly determine the price of skill books and materials, and could tell the value of the summons in my hand at a glance. It seems she has truly mastered the entire market. Then I told her, I'm handing all these things over to you. Try to sell them. To this, Xenia was confident and certain that she could sell them for a good price, at least not worse than anyone else. After all, she had proven her skills time and time again. Since she was young, no matter which game she played, she showed a strong interest in trading. Then Xenia asked me what percentage of commission I intended to pay her. Once she finished this for me, she would still have to go to the dungeons herself to collect runes for money. To this, I asked her, what percentage do you want? Those large wholesalers usually take about 8% to 10% in fees. But you are my brother, so 5%? That definitely won't do. Hearing this, Xenia looked a bit troubled. She thought I felt 5% was too high. Then I told her, I'll give you at least 20%. Try to sell them for the best prices possible. You need to earn more for yourself. This sentence instantly left Xenia stunned. She had struggled in this industry for so many years, and no one had ever given her this much. In a while, I will give you more runes of even better quality. So you need to be prepared and get moving quickly. What? There's even better stock. Are these not all of them? From the way my brother speaks, it seems this won't be a one-time deal, but something that will continue. I finally don't have to go collect runes myself. I've truly become a rune merchant. After I gave all the dungeon rewards, after I gave them all to my sister, I began to seriously cultivate Pokelin's skill growth. Watching her attacks become more and more fierce each time, I felt incredibly excited. An essential requirement for a powerful player is possessing a summon capable of massive output. Just as Poklon once again took down the monsters in the dungeon, I praised her happily. You did great. Now, you could probably flatten a D-rank dungeon with your eyes closed. Looking at her shy expression, clearly, my petting had appropriately boosted. Poklong's affection for me increased. Since I started clearing dungeons alone with Poklong, some time has already passed. Most other people are getting stronger under the instructor's training. Although when we set off, Ram had desperately begged me to take him along. But for the sake of his improvement, I had to be heartless. Summons can move on their own even when the player isn't present for several hours, and can even dismiss themselves. That's why they are exceptionally handy to use. Just for this reason, they are exceptionally handy to use. Just as Poklong and I were about to leave the dungeon, I asked her if there was anything she wanted, but neither of us noticed that behind us, a goblin had been lying in ambush for a long time. The goblin suddenly leaped out, wielding a weapon to launch a sneak attack. Hearing the noise, I didn't even turn my head, while Poklong immediately blasted a fire spell, burning it to ashes. Then, I picked up the topic that was just interrupted and asked her what she wanted. Seeing her confused, I told her that just as the instructor is obsessed with training and Ram craves cake, she could just name anything without being shy. Actually, there's nothing in particular that I want, but being able to support you like this is already enough for me. Hearing Poklong's response, I felt a warmth in my chest. Keep thinking, just name one thing, for example, something you want to eat. Normally, summons don't need to eat, but occasionally, I eat with humanoid summons. Since Ram loves cream bread, they must be able to taste things, so I can't just eat the delicious food alone. I have to share it with others. Therefore, right now I really want to know what they actually like to eat. Looking at Poklong's shy expression, I had a feeling she might like sweets like strawberry cake. Seeing no reaction from Poklong, I tentatively asked her if she liked fried chicken and beer. The reason I asked this was because Ram is also obsessed with that combination. As soon as I finished speaking, Poklong looked very interested. So it turns out that's what she loves. Then Poklong, what skill will you awaken next? Right now, I'm still in the first stage. There's still a long way to go until that final destruction magic. Hearing this, I told her, once you learn the final skill, we can stop the training. And after that, I'll throw a party full of fried chicken and beer just for you. But looking at Poklong's reaction, it seems she prefers resting over eating. Fine, it doesn't matter as long as she has the motivation to work hard. Meanwhile, Lu Jia led her employees to a construction site. Boss, why did you pick a place like this? I bought this from my grandfather. I plan to put up several buildings here. This area will be offices, and that area will be housing and apartments for employees only. Also, I plan to build shelters underneath all the buildings, because I made a promise to Baek Jinwoo, and I must keep it at all costs. Since he prefers open spaces, a training ground would be perfect right there. Mr. Jinwoo, did you receive the summons I mentioned earlier? Yes, this is the shadow wolf you requested. But why did you specifically ask for this kind of summon this time? Because of a promise, I have to deliver it to someone. At the same time, Baek Jong-ah was having a meal at a restaurant with her friends. This time, she was very generous and treated her friends to a feast. Because with my help, her finances have improved significantly. The things my brother gave me are not only numerous, but there are plenty of high-quality items to choose from. Because of this, the number of customers has doubled. Rune dealers all want to get stock from me. You all know who Baek Jinwoo is, right? Recently, he even broke the records he set previously. That kind of speed is simply breathtaking. Hearing her friends praise her brother, Baek Jong-ah couldn't help but smile secretly. But as they kept talking, the girls even thought he was very handsome and wished they could be his girlfriend. Just as Baek Jong-ah looked speechless, she picked up her phone to check a notification she just received, and was surprised to see that Lu Jia, whom she had followed for a long time, had actually followed her back. This made her heart surge with emotion. After all, she had been a die-hard fan for a very long time. But then she thought, this is probably because I am my brother's sister. This scene naturally attracted the attention of all the girls present. Just then, a message from Lu Jia made her freeze in her seat as if she had turned to stone, because the idol she had admired for so long had actually invited her to meet tomorrow. Lu Jia drove to the meeting point early. After getting in the car, Baek Jong-ah was incredibly excited, rubbing her hands together incessantly. After a while, she spoke stutteringly. Do you want to meet my family? That's right, Baizhenyu has been too busy lately. I asked if I could send some gifts in his name, and he agreed. Are you going to deliver the gifts to us in person? Of course, I am representing the company. Normally, just using a courier to send them over would be enough. Just how much does he care about my brother? That he'd come to visit in person? She's my idol. Even if it's my brother, I'm still very jealous. Will your parents agree to a sudden visit? It's fine, I've already told them to stay home, because there's someone I want them to meet today. My parents don't even know that my brother has become so famous. Soon, Lu Jia entered the house led by Baizhenyu. After entering, she found that although the place was small, it was very cozy everywhere. You're here. Who is the guest you said was coming with you? But when they saw Lu Jia's appearance, they said in surprise, how could you make such a beautiful friend? Then Lu Jia introduced herself and her background. But obviously, they had never heard of the company. Only after Baizhenyu's explanation did they realize that their son had actually become so famous, and had even started his own company. Yes, I am here as a representative of the company to visit you both. According to the contract, our company has an obligation to take care of you both. You can look over the contents of this first. From now on, all your living and medical expenses will be fully covered by our company. Plus, there's an additional monthly allowance of 10 million won. I hope you won't refuse and will try to accept it. Compared to the achievements of Baizhenyu, this is insignificant and barely worth mentioning. Right, I've also prepared a small gift for you. Then Lu Jia opened her summon inventory. I heard that you are very fond of summons. Yes, but the only one my eldest son has is just an ordinary stone golem. A moment later, as Lu Jia tapped her finger, a white light burst open before them. Following that, a B-rank diamond golem appeared. Its size was similar to a gargoyle, but it was far more robust. Thank you so much. I never expected to benefit from my son, and get such a powerful summon. There's not only one for the gentleman, but also for the lady. Before she finished speaking, she took out a B-rank rainbow snail. There are only 100 left in the whole world, and it also has miraculous skincare effects. For example, using its gel components, can achieve whitening and anti-wrinkle effects. It's called the rainbow snail. I think you'll like it. You can read the description window slowly later. At this moment, Baizhenyu looked on with envy. Dad, Mom, you guys are really lucky. Zhenya, you have one too. As she spoke, Lu Jia took out the shadow wolf she had prepared. Is this for real? Am I dreaming? A shadow wolf worth 500 million won is just sitting right here in front of me. Mr. Zhenyu said you would definitely like this. Hearing this, Baizhenyu was so excited that she hugged the shadow wolf and burst into tears. You won't take it back, right? I'm so sorry for causing you trouble. Please, at least stay for a meal. That sounds great. I've actually already picked a restaurant. Zhenyu never studied before. He was completely focused on that game. Now we can finally see the benefits of it. Thinking about it, he must have spent a considerable amount of time. Once he's addicted to something, in his eyes, there's room for only that one thing. Actually, my brother is truly outstanding. But for a player who has only played for 1 year, isn't that review a bit excessive? What are you talking about? He's played for at least 10 years. Hearing this, Lu Jia became extremely excited. Really? Sir, probably around the time he was in middle school. He would play and then fall asleep. So I caught a glimpse of the game's title. Something like Battle of Summoners, or something. I wondered how much longer he could keep playing. But he kept playing like that until the final year of high school. Dad, is this true? Of course. Although my memory is a bit fuzzy, I am very certain about this one point. A person who played a trash game for 10 years. There's only one person left like that. Could he be the one everyone is looking for? The world's strongest summoner, Kim Reid? Since ordinary dungeons can no longer satisfy the growth of the summons, I plan to take them to try the ultimate difficulty dungeon. But first, I need to get in touch with Ryu Jia and let her know about the situation. Since I wasn't sure if she was busy, I decided to leave her a text message. But I didn't expect Ryu Jia to reply instantly. She replied. But I didn't expect Ryu Jia to reply instantly. She replied, but I didn't expect Ryu Jia to reply instantly, but I didn't expect Ryu Jia to reply instantly. In the text, Ryu Jia told me to just go for the challenge. We have already prepared all the necessary recording equipment. The footage of this final dungeon will be sold together with the previous normal dungeon footage. Anyway, she definitely understands the market better than I do. So I don't need to worry about that part at all. I heard about that matter from my sister. I really didn't expect her to visit my home in person. She even said she would personally take care of them. Just as I thought. She and the government agencies are completely different things. The value Ryu Jia places on me and my family makes me very glad to have joined her company. A few days later, I started leading Pa Krone to clear the final dungeon. Now, with his destructive power, clearing it is a very easy task. Right after I broke the record once again, my name once again filled the headlines of various news outlets. But I didn't pay any attention to these things, because there was something more urgent to resolve right now. For some reason, Pokron's recent state has been a bit off, and his strength hasn't been increasing. After I asked repeatedly, the coach told me Pa Krone seems to have been playing tricks lately. Looking at his current magical power and control, he is clearly already capable of using special skills, but he has been keeping that skill hidden. This can only mean he is intentionally hiding it. I asked him with full of doubt, could there be a special reason why he's doing this? Haven't you been taking only Pokron to the dungeon lately? I guess Pokron is fascinated by that scene. All summons instinctively hope to attract all of the players' attention. Pokron might be thinking that if he grows too fast, he won't be able to go to the dungeon with you anymore. So that's how it is. That is indeed a bit embarrassing, but at the same time, very touching. I have a good idea. Perhaps you should change the training method. Then he leaned in and told me, until the ultimate skill is learned, I will no longer take you to the dungeon alone. I wasn't sure if this tactic would work, but I still laid the cards on the table honestly with Pokron. But to my complete surprise, Pokron directly admitted that he had actually learned it long ago. So I gently patted her head and told her she did a great job. I could have scolded her a bit for being lazy, but facing her adorable and pitiful look, I couldn't bring myself to be harsh. Since you've done it as promised, today we will stop the training, take a good rest, and have a party. This card is a black card Ryu Jia gave me. I can't even count the amount of money in it. After hearing that I wanted to stop the training, the coach froze on the spot like a stone statue. This suddenly made me realize, if the coach stops the training, then it would be like taking his life. Since this has already been mentioned, then it's best to make up your mind now. From now on, whenever someone masters a new skill, it will be designated as a training rest day and party day. Seeing the coach's anxious look, I told him that resting itself is actually a form of training. Don't you often say that the power of unity is strong? So resting and partying can help everyone bond faster. If that's your wish, then that's great. Unity is also a form of training. Just like that, I summoned all the summons. Everyone gathered together and had a party. Pokron finally got to eat the fried chicken she had been longing for. To this, the coach said that today is truly a special day. The summons nearby also gave my party a very high rating. Now that all the preparations are complete, it's time to go and challenge the Tower of Judgment. This time, I plan to try a difficulty in the Tower of Trials, which is even higher than the dungeons. And the tower is filled with things that ordinary dungeons simply cannot compare to in terms of amazing rewards. But as a price, it presents an insane level of difficulty, and has devoured the lives of countless players. So soon after, I told Lu Jia about this plan. After hearing my plan, Lu Jia was somewhat worried about my safety, but I told her that this time I'll only go up to the 10th floor. So there's no need to fear. I heard that even our country's top players have barely reached this level. Even so, many have perished trying to reach it. Even the top players who barely survived call that place hell. Actually, I had heard this rumor long ago, but I have already made preparations. Seeing me about to dive into such a dangerous place while remaining so calm, Lu Jia couldn't help but be stunned. But then she thought, since she could clear up to the 100th floor in the game, then these mere 10 floors surely wouldn't be anything to her. But once we agreed, before he reveals his hand, I must pretend to be completely unaware. He's even this secretive with his own family. Lu Jia looked at me, with a serious face, saying she would wait for my return. Don't worry about me. I don't plan to wear gear this time. But aren't you planning to sell it as information? In the Tower of Trials, EX grade is clearly of critical importance. But what comes after it is communication. If I keep my mouth shut and still want to communicate with them, it would be too tedious. So naturally, I can't put on the recording gear." Seeing me refuse so clearly, she didn't say anything else. Lu Jia nodded and agreed to my request. Just then, Lu Jia hesitantly asked if I could do her a favor. "The national team qualifiers start in 2 months. Player is looking for a fight?" "I've heard a bit about this matter. It's the competition that determines the national team roster for the World League, right? If I can be selected, I can participate and you've earned the right to. The World League held at the end of the year, but doesn't participating in the league require being affiliated with a guild or headquarters? Our company isn't an official guild, so I think the threshold might be a bit high." To this, Lu Jia told me not to worry, as long as there's a recommendation letter from a member of parliament, there's a way. Then she leaned close to my ear and whispered that she is very close to a member, so I don't need to worry. But looking at my current strength, the world-class opponents are still too troublesome. But that's only for now. There are still 8 months until the end of the year. If Pak Long can master Devour during this time, then I can go toe-to-toe with those guys. If you're actually picked for the national team, you will receive a vast amount of resource support. Nowadays, the government is sparing no expense to gather top players. Really? Either way, I need money to summon the rest of those EX grade characters. How much subsidy can they provide? It varies every year, but they will definitely give quite a few high-level summoning scrolls. If lucky, you might even get a top-tier summoning scroll. Hearing about top-tier summoning scrolls surprised me. Those things are basically priceless treasures. So I readily accepted Lu Jia's request. I can participate. Hearing this, she stood up excitedly and grabbed my hand, making me feel a bit embarrassed. I had never been this close to another gender before. Looking at Lu Jia's expression actually made a vague sense of intimacy arise in my heart. A week later, I began leading Pak Long to train the newly learned skill. I asked her if this new skill felt smooth to use. Just then, Pak Long suddenly shyly turned her face away, saying there was something to tell me. "Master, actually I really wanted to go to the dungeon with you. That's why I pretended not to have learned the new skill. I'm really sorry, the other summons probably also long to be alone with you." Seeing this, I reached out and rubbed her head, and immediately told her not to blame herself too much. "Honestly, I'm grateful that you're willing to tell me, because you are the person I value most right now. That's why I spend most of my time on you. It's perfectly normal, because you are an EX grade summon. But as for the summons in ordinary dungeons, I love them just as much. I love the summons just as much. It's just that compared to you few EX grades, I care about you more. Since you've already learned this new skill, let's call it a day. Tomorrow, it'll be time for us to try out the Tower of Trials." I walked up to the portal leading to the Tower of Trials. Following the rules, I showed my registration card. After verification, the staff began to explain some matters to me. "If a full week has passed since entering the Tower of Trials, and you haven't returned, you will be listed as a missing person. If a full month passes, you will be declared dead." But I had long since figured out these rules. Under my questioning, the administrator told me that none of these situations would be leaked to the media. Never mind reporters, even ordinary citizens are forbidden from approaching the area around the tower. Great, at least I don't want my family to know. If they found out I was asking, they would definitely worry about the Tower of Trials. After checking all the procedures, they let me step through the portal in front of me. As soon as I entered, I saw that scene of a dilapidated city, and around here wandered a terrifying number of demons. The system informed me that in the Tower of Trials, I could deploy 3 summoning teams. I had been prepared for this for a long time. I had already organized the queues and embedded the highest possible runes. Before long, a system notification popped up. This abandoned city had been placed under a powerful curse. Flying summons cannot be used, so I temporarily recalled the 2 of them. Flying units are banned, and there's not a drop of water here. Then I ordered the trainer to act according to the previous plan. So the trainer immediately led the elf ram away from the spot. At this point, there was no need to worry about those 2, fearing they would be surrounded by demons. Because the demons in the Tower of Trials, among all monsters, have the lowest movement and attack speeds, but their defense and attack power are ridiculously high. Worse still, their claws are coated in venom. Even a tiny scratch can be extremely dangerous. Given that the numbers are too vast, trying to kill them all would be a complete waste of effort. So I told the summons to fight their way through this alley first, and try not to clash with them head-on. Only target their weak points. Under my command, the summons began, clearing out the demons blocking our path. Once the route is known, the first floor isn't actually that tricky, and they should be reaching the place soon. Soon, the trainer found me with a map, so I immediately spread it in my palm to study the route, using that cathedral as a landmark. Our current position is right here. Fortunately, the exit isn't too far off. But to break through this way, we must crush right over that giant ghoul. Seeing this, the trainer beat his chest, claiming he could take care of it, since the elf ram had been continuously stacking speed for the trainer. So he suggested that once I get out, I immediately buy him 100 cream buns as a reward. That giant ghoul should be hiding nearby. The standard tactic is to dispatch 2 squads to distract the giant ghoul, while the others rush toward the exit in the opening. But this tactic only applies to players who don't have EX rank summons on hand. Then I asked Pokelong if she could stack the layers of the new skill further. Hearing this, she told me she had already stacked 5 layers. Now she can stack layers while pushing forward. For something like a giant ghoul, with Pokelong's fully stacked new skill, a single blow would be enough to defeat it.